Welcome to the Soul Script podcast. Here we explore how to unlock the power of our story. Our journey here on earth can be one of deep passion, intentional creation, and personal transformation. The only thing holding us back is our stories. Come and join me as we rewrite and reignite. Hello, you guys. Welcome to the Soul Script podcast. This week, I am so, nervous, but also excited to talk to you. I don't really have just one specific subject for you. I try to teach at least one concept that you can go away with and put into action. You're going to have some kind of an actionable step. But today, I don't know if we're going to have that at all. And today I am going to share some really scary, deep stuff for me that, in all honesty, I have been avoiding sharing with you. I've been avoiding sharing it with myself. Honestly, it has been a huge journey. And the interesting thing is I started this podcast, just the actual podcast, not this podcast episode, but my very first podcast episode ever was me being extremely vulnerable about spirituality. I wanted this podcast to be about spirituality and to have this open conversation about it, but I have kind of hidden away from that subject as I have been trying to sort myself and sort out my thoughts and my own beliefs and my own experiences. And I kept feeling like I had to have the answers to things in order to share it with you. In many of the other episodes, it's, a previous story that I have been through. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end, and some kind of a valuable conclusion of a principle that I can share with you, right? That's how I have a specific concept that I want to teach to you. But in this one, there is a beginning and there's a middle, and so far there isn't an end. And honestly, I don't know if there will ever be an end. There will ever be something that's just super solidified. And that is why I have been so scared to talk about my current spirituality, my current faith, how I view God and the world in regards to spirituality. But this is my thing. And as I talk about that, like, emotions come up and tears come to my eyes, because I know that every single one of us has a gift that they get to share to the world, and they have a valuable part that they get to play. You see this in human design, and I love human design because we get to be really specific about your gifts and how you kind of function in your roles in the world. And I believe that 110% that you're brought into this world, you are born into this world with maybe not a mission, like not something that a laid out pathway for you, but an overall broad mission and energy that you bring into the friends and family and the community and into your own little world, your own self. And all that to say is that my gift, my mission is to teach people about spirituality, teach people about things that are really hard to grasp, esoteric, metaphysical type things, and bring them onto a physical plane. And I have been feeling so out of alignment, and things feel yucky and stuck and stagnant. Like, the literal energy that I'm feeling, it looks like a pond that is just yucky, muddy, algae infested water, and it doesn't have this outlet. And that is the stagnant energy I have been feeling. And I think that is because I have been hiding away from my true purpose and from sharing these stories. Whew, I don't know if I'm so emotional because it feels good to release it and just be authentic. And I've been hiding that for the last, I don't even know, like the last 15, 20, no, not 20 episodes, but like 15 episodes maybe, where I'm kind of going to that safe place, that place that I feel comfortable with, and been hiding away from teaching you what I'm really here to teach you. So if you want to learn about weird, esoteric, metaphysical concepts and that interests you, then stick around, and I'm going to talk to you about my own spirituality and my own day-to-day life as it is now and my viewpoints as they are right now. Ooh, that honestly felt so good. And I think I'm on this journey, this continual journey to just be authentic. But guys, it is so scary. It is so scary to stand out. It's so scary to have any kind of beliefs different than, the overwhelming majority of people around you. And that is what I am faced with, is wanting to walk a different pathway and having a different viewpoint on things that are so different than my community, my extended family. And I want to start, well, I guess I've already started, but I want to continue and state that this is my journey. And I also want to state that I give myself permission to change my opinion at any time. And I think that's really the biggest reason why I haven't shared, is because once you put your opinion out there publicly, man, are you going to be held to that, right? People are maybe going to quote you on it. And when you start living in a different way because you've gathered more information, are they going to hold you to what it was that you once believed? And that right there stops us from being able to progress because we're scared of changing. We're scared of sharing the changes that we've been through. One, because it's scary to share something that's maybe different from other people. But two, what if you change your mind? What if you get more information than you had before and more experiences, and you actually no longer believe those things that you stated that you believe, or that you are questioning, or so on and so forth. And I am giving myself permission to change at any time. So in the very first episode of the Soul Script podcast, I talked to you about my initial faith awakening, this Kundalini rising, this moment where I just realized that there was so much expansiveness, specifically in the spiritual realm and specifically with God, that he did not have to work in this box capacity that I had always imagined him working in. And so I kind of started this journey. I talk about it in detail of learning about spiritual gifts, about learning about intuition, about learning about how God interacts with me and how I interact with him, and how our relationship can look and how we can co-create together. It's been this incredibly beautiful journey. Well, the first experience that I had at the retreat, if you have no idea what I'm talking about, please go back, start at episode 1. My Hero's Journey is the title of it. I went to this retreat where I had my eyes opened. And the interesting thing is I felt really safe about it because everybody there was of the same faith that I was currently a part of, which is the LDS church. So the Church of Latter-day Saints. No, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Ooh, I guess I'm out of practice on saying it. Or what a lot of people know as the Mormons. And so I was affiliated with this church, and we will get into where I'm at now. So I was 100% all in at this point, loved the church, highly dedicated to the teachings found within the church, was like a firm believer my entire life. The little girl who went up onto the pulpit when it was fast and testimony meeting and just announced her love and her testimony of the gospel and of Jesus Christ and of our Heavenly Father. Like, that was me. And so going to this retreat, I had my eyes opened, but it was with a group of women who all believed the same structure of God that I believed in. And so while they were teaching me some like really interesting ideas about how we can interact with the spiritual world that I had never been exposed to at all, and were like really new and kind of like, what the heck is going on? I always felt a little bit of safety because I was with these women who were remarkably faithful and who, when you walk into the room, they're like angels. They have so much beauty to them, so much love, and they just exude that from them. So incredibly wise. And I loved being with them. I felt safe with them, and I felt safe to walk down this pathway of learning more about the spiritual realm and about God and about my relationship with God. Okay, so that was the beginning of it. Now, years passed and I continued to walk down this pathway. I continued to dive into this. So, okay, being super authentic here, like, let's stop walking around things, Laura. Come on, just say these things. I mean, you could call this the energy world. Like, you hear of energy conferences and it's called woo-woo stuff. That is the world, okay? But this world is so vastly different than I think the stigma that surrounds it. And I don't really say I'm in the energy world. I love principles that are taught at those energy conferences and things like that, because they really can widen your horizon of being able to connect with God, connect with divinity, connect with yourself. Now, are there things that are like way outside of my comfort zone? Whether that's like, I think that's total baloney, or I don't know, I haven't ever played in that before. I don't know what that's like. I haven't experienced it for myself. Yes, there are things like way on the outskirts of my comfort zone or in my belief zone, right? But man, you guys, like, being opened to the idea, man, how do you describe this? Being open to the idea that you can interact, that you can be influenced or have influence over things that are not seen, just is so expansive and so beautiful. And that is what drew me in, because I have always loved God with all of my heart and soul. I have always been so highly interested in everything that has to do with spirituality and really connecting with Him. And honestly, I have felt very connected to God for the majority of my life. When people say like they don't know who God is, they have never had a conversation with God, they don't feel like God has ever answered their prayers, that's not something I relate to, because I have felt God in my life, like basically the whole majority of my life. And I believed in spirits and angels and the Holy Ghost, the Spirit that can speak to us and prompt us. And I explored all of those things even before I got to this point. And so to have a group of people who could put these experiences into a different language than I had been taught, and that language is somewhat limiting. I do talk about this in maybe within the first 3 episodes of this podcast, where within the LDS church, we believe in the Holy Ghost. We believe in the Spirit. We believe in promptings. We believe in angels. We believe in an afterlife. We believe in a life before this. We believe that God can be with us and can dwell with us. And we believe, well, I don't know if we believe it or are like really taught it, but the doctrine is there where it says the kingdom of God is within, but I don't think we practice it. I say we as like this broad term for the LDS church, the members within the LDS church, is that we are taught these things, but do we understand these things? Do we actually know how they look in our lives? And people have been so condemned, like called witches, called, energy workers, called whatever. Like the church has literally come out and said that you should not, be participating in any kind of energy work or healers that promise miracles. Sure, that's great. Like, don't go to anybody that says that they're going to heal you. I believe, because I don't think that somebody else can heal you. I think it is yourself and your own alignment with God and your own vibration. And I also do believe in Jesus Christ and his atonement and his ability to help you to heal. Do I know exactly what that looks like? No, but we can get back to that in a minute. What I'm saying is that there are many practices that have been condoned that actually help us to practice these things that we find within the gospel, within the Bible, within the Book of Mormon, and actually having a relationship with them, actually understanding them. I don't know what else to say. We see these things, we hear these things, but do we actually know how to use these things? Do we actually know how to connect to God? Is it possible that we can pray in a different way than we're taught within church, a different format? Is it possible that we could pray through meditation? Is it possible that we could connect to God through different rituals? Is it possible that feeling the Spirit or the Holy Ghost, I use quotations here, can feel different for everybody, and that we need to learn a big scope of possible ways that the Spirit talks to us? And then I'm going to take it a step farther, and I think this is not something readily taught within the church, but is it possible that we have a say over our life, that we're not acted upon, and that God isn't just guiding and directing us, but that he's actually co-creating with us? Okay, we're gonna pause there because I just want to pause for a second before I get ahead of myself. So I was enticed. I was in love with these incredible teachings that I was being taught, not within the church, but that people within the same church that I currently attended also practiced. And practicing these things led to me having a much stronger relationship with God than I ever had before. Even though I felt like my relationship was strong, holy cow, like so much expansiveness. And I felt like I had so much intention and intuition and guidance and so much beauty and miracles that I recognized come into my life because of these things that I was taught. But once again, I felt safe because I was doing it within the confines, within the boundaries of the LDS church and doctrine. And I was only doing those things that I saw by example from these other women. And like I said, these women are amazing and I love them so much and I respect them so much, and they have been my mentors. That is what I felt comfortable with and what I wanted to follow. I can't remember when things started to change for me. So I started having this new, existence. Not being very articulate today as I'm just word vomiting here on you, but I started seeing people that I knew fall away from the church. And I was sad about it. I mourned their stepping away from the church and, having so much confusion. And I was so sad that they were stepping away from the truth and from safety and from salvation, because that's what we're taught within the LDS church, is that we have the whole truth, that we know everything about, well, maybe not everything, but we know how life after death is structured, and we just know it all, right? And that anybody who isn't following those exact steps isn't going to meet their full potential and receive salvation. And so you feel so sad as you watch your family members, your friends step away from the church. Now, I was taught by my dad, by my parents, to love everyone. And I think they really strived to show me that members outside of the church, or I guess individuals outside of the church, were beautiful, wonderful people. And I think my parents really, really strived to teach me that. I think that was also the message taught in church. There's the message of everybody is loved by God and we are meant to love everybody. But then on the flip side, there is a little bit of elitism of saying we are the only ones who have the true church or the true truth, the whole truth. And if anybody is not affiliated with us and not walking down the covenant path, then essentially they are not, how do you say this? They are not as good as you. I mean, that's really what comes across, even though that's not what is maybe supposed to be taught. But whether it's openly taught or it's subconscious, there is this hierarchy. You are meant to love others, but that they need to have the gospel in order to be saved, and that because you have the gospel, you will be saved and they will not be. Does that make sense? I know that there are so many people out there who may be just ready to Bible bash on me and ready to just, prove me wrong. But once again, this is my experience and I get to tell it however I want to tell it. And just because there may be different perspectives out there, it doesn't mean that the perspective that I had or that I have been raised with or that sunk in is wrong. This is very real for me, and your experience that you're experiencing, whether it's the same perspective as somebody else, is very real for you. And no matter what, you will be faced with the opportunity to face your personal demons, your personal story, what has sunk into you. So does it matter if it's right or wrong, or if you could prove it biblically or not? No, it doesn't, because this is your individual story. This is my individual story, and this is what I have had to work through. So while I'm sure there are people out there who want to fight me on this, this is my experience. And I know that you have your experience, and I would love to respect you for your experience. And I expect and hope for the same respect. Okay, so where was I? Side tangent. Okay, I remember. So people leaving the church, me still loving them, quote unquote, loving them, thinking that I was loving them, while still being so sad that they weren't part of the church anymore because they wouldn't have their salvation, because they were going off the path, and that they, stopped holding on to the iron rod, and now they were headed into dangerous waters and open and big spacious buildings, right? I continued seeing people leaving. And then what I saw, or the things that I was hearing, is that the reason why they were leaving is because they had, you've definitely heard the phrase by now if you're listening to this episode, is there's the shelf, and everybody is putting things on the shelf that they don't quite understand. They're putting it on the shelf for later, and then eventually something goes on the shelf, one last thing, and your shelf breaks because it can't hold anymore, and so you have to leave. And I kept seeing that people were leaving because they had questions about the church, and they would ask and they would plead and they would pray to God, and God would not affirm their questions, right? So we're taught that we are to go to God and we are to ask a question and to receive an answer. But here's the thing, you guys, is that within the church, we are taught to go to God, ask him a question, receive an answer, but also we're kind of taught that you should be receiving a specific answer. So what happens when you pray to God and you ask a question and you don't get the answer that you're taught to get? All of a sudden, you're like, who am I? Who is God? I don't know what to believe or not. I don't have a relationship with him anymore. He didn't answer my prayer. The Spirit didn't confirm to me that this was true. There's something wrong with me. I don't know how to connect to God. I don't even know if I'm spiritual. I don't even know if God is there. And I would see people go through this process. And eventually I was waking up and I saw, dang, like they're questioning. They go to God and they ask him questions. And because they don't get the exact answers that they are taught to receive, they then leave. And I kept thinking, no. When people start asking questions, they start feeling this discontent. They start feeling this, distance between them and God or them and the church. I'm like, this is awesome. And this is so awesome because they are no longer just doing what they are taught to do. I want to clarify that I live in Utah. I've grown up in Utah. The vast majority of the population in Utah are LDS or ex-LDS. Honestly, the culture inside of the church and even the teachings that are taught at church on Sunday, whether they are truthful or not, are different than you might hear in the church someplace else. So I had all of these friends and I was so excited for them because they were finally waking up. They asked to know the truth. And so everything started to fall apart. All of their building blocks that they once thought were totally solid and they just accepted because they were told to accept them start crumbling. And then they're like, oh my gosh, God isn't real. I'm going to leave. And I kept thinking, no. Wake up, gain your own testimony, stay within the church, get to know God. There should be room within the church for people to question. And that was something that I wasn't seeing. And even though it is preached that everybody is welcome at church, guys, this is not actually being carried out. From my personal experience, this is not something that actually takes place within the culture or within the church building or within the church as a whole, at least found within my community and at least what I have been exposed to. So I started to be like, there needs to be room for people to question and stay within the church, and for everything that they thought they knew to be constructed, and for them to receive their own answers of what really is true for them. Does that make sense? So I got pumped up every single time I saw somebody having what they call a faith crisis, and I would be like, no. This is a faith awakening. Stop thinking that God isn't answering you and that he's left you and deserted you, and start being open to how he actually is teaching you and what he is teaching you. And maybe that is different from what you have been told. And I kept wanting there to be like this revolution. I kept wanting there to be this massive change within the church where all of a sudden things started to change and shift. I mean, there have been major changes and shifting within the church as the gospel is revealed. And I was like, it is going to be any second now that there are going to be some major changes, like women are allowed to have the priesthood, or we recognize their priesthood powers, where I was hoping for changes to happen where we honestly really did love other people and we brought them into our circles and we gave space to everybody and we loved them and we saw them. I was like, stuff is going to happen. Stuff is going to change. And I was holding on to my testimony. I honestly never questioned it at all. But I loved seeing people go out on their own and I loved seeing them explore themselves and explore God. I was stepping into this frame of mind where I no longer feared somebody questioning because I saw that it led to them figuring stuff out for themselves. Now, as I talk about this, there's all of these emotions coming up. There's all of these things. There's all of these I'm like, people are coming up into my mind that if they were to listen to this, they would think that, and somebody else pops into my mind. And if they were to listen to this, they would rejoice. And that's the thing, is everything is so divided and there's so many different perspectives out there. And it's quite hard to make sense of. And I want to acknowledge that. And I want to acknowledge the fear that I feel as I am sharing this story, because guys, it's intense. And this is why I haven't shared this story until now, because I have been so in my head about, well, what if this? What is that perspective? Da 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 da. Oh no, what are they going to think? What am I going to think? What if I change my mind? And it has kept me stagnant because I'm so worried about being right or being wrong, or there being a different perspective, or somebody being disappointed in me, or somebody being super proud of me, or whatever it might be. It has stopped me from sharing this message, and all of those things are coming up right now, and I just wanted to share that with you in real time. Okay, let's continue. So I'm watching people leave. I'm getting pumped every time they have a faith crisis, because I'm like, dang, you're about to go and receive so much amazing information if only you can let go and just really let God teach you. Well, I wanted to strengthen my testimony. I already had a huge testimony. I already loved almost everything about the church. I mean, not everything. Okay, let's be honest, not everything. But I had my shelf, and my shelf was very strong, very stable, and I was willing to let things sit there while I enjoyed the other aspects of the gospel and the church's teachings. So I went to go look up information about the temple and the temple ordinances and the covenants and all of the signs and the symbols. And out of respect for the church and for sacred rituals, I will not go into detail about those things, not because I feel uncomfortable sharing them, but because I highly, highly respect someone's sacred ritual, someone's sacred practice, that they think about God, that they remember Him, that they remember them, they remember her, they remember the universe, whatever it is, many gods, that they practice something that brings them closer to divinity of whatever type that is. And when we can bring ourselves closer to divinity, we can step out of the shadows and the things that are clouding us. I support that. And I want to respect those things no matter what church it is. So I won't divulge anything about the temple signs or symbols or anything, but I will tell you my journey with learning about the temple. I really wanted to strengthen my testimony and to really understand what it was I was going to the temple for, because when you go to the temple, you aren't allowed, you are, I don't know, that sounds a little harsh, but you aren't supposed to talk to others about it because of the sacredness of the experience, which, like I said, I can respect. You go into the temple and it is a brand new experience. And there are a lot of things happening. There's a lot of information that you're going to take in, but there's also not a lot of information given about what it is that you are doing. It is something that you are meant to go to God and ask questions about and receive individually the answers to those questions. So that was what I was attempting to do. I went out and was seeking out answers to what exactly I was doing within the temple. And I promise on my life that this was not because I wanted to go prove it wrong or because I don't know, was even questioning them. It was because I truly wanted to have a better understanding of the temple. Honestly, because if I look back on it, it's because I wanted to be super righteous. I wanted to be worthy enough to be able to receive these not secrets. I don't want to say secrets, but for these promises, for these emblems, for these things, I wanted to be able to be worthy enough to receive those and to know the whole truth and to, I mean, if I'm being honest, like I wanted to be able to meet Christ in the flesh, to receive the second comforter, and that was what I was striving for. So there are specific rituals that you do within the temple, and I wanted to know where those came from. So I stumbled upon some of these procedures, these rituals, their names, and was learning more about them. And what I found was information that unsettled me. And this information was pretty simple, pretty like chill, right? So the concept of the temple endowments and all of the ordinances done within the temple is that they were revealed to Joseph Smith and that Joseph Smith put them into, practice for us and taught us these sacred practices, these sacred covenants that we were meant to do. And the information that I came across was that a lot of the practices that we do within the temple actually originate or are the same as practices that the Freemasons do. I guess maybe I should probably give like a little bit of a, trigger. I don't know. Like, I don't want this to cause anybody to go off of not off of the path. This is my journey, and I really don't want this to negatively affect your journey. Or maybe it's okay for me to share this stuff because you can pay attention to what it brings up inside of you, and you can go and you can pray about it, and you can ask your own questions, and you can receive your own answers, and you can notice where this doesn't feel right, or I'm okay with this. Maybe that's what I'm going to settle on, okay? I'm going to share my experience with you. I encourage you to just pay attention to what comes up as I am sharing this experience with you. And maybe this is the perfect time to actually teach something that, no, we're not going to go into that yet. It's going to come. I'll tell you, this is a tool that has helped me to be able to navigate this whole journey. And this tool I have shared with other people and seen amazing results from it. I still don't know what the right verbiage is for a lot of these things, but I've seen a lot of people put this into practice, and they have been able to have an easing of the difficulty of a faith awakening journey. Shall we say that? Was that good enough? So I learned that a lot of the practices are the exact same, maybe some slight differences from the Freemasons. And I also learned that Joseph Smith and his family practiced Freemasonry. And this was so upsetting for me. And the reason why this was so upsetting for me is because I was taught my entire life that Joseph Smith had divine revelation given to him from God and only God. And I thought that the practices that took place within the temple were highly unique and individual to the LDS church and the LDS temple. And it was kind of earth-shattering for me to find that Joseph Smith was putting in Freemason practices into this new temple ordinance. Now, I have this like battle in my brain where a lot of times God will take something that is good and that is already established, and then he adds to it or he tweaks it or whatever it is, but he uses something that's already established and already has truth and then uses it to build upon, right? So I mean, there's 1,000 questions going on in my head. Well, maybe Joseph Smith was led to Freemasonry so that he could see these things, so that then he could put them into practice within the temple and God could expand on them. There's so many things, right? But it caused enough doubt in me, that like I did a 180 flip, you guys. I went from, I want to learn more about the temple and its sacredness and what the signs mean and what all of those practices are, to ripping off my garments right there and then. And the reason why I ripped off my garments is because the garments are something that you put on after you go to the temple. If you don't know this, they are essentially underwear that have sacred symbols on them, just like etched in them. What do you call it? That are just embroidered. That's it. That are embroidered in them. And those symbols are the same symbols that you find within the church. And they are very similar symbols, that you find within the temple. And they are very similar, if not identical, symbols to the Freemasonry symbols. And these symbols can also be found on the outside of the church, and they're the same ones that are found within the Freemason religion. And so I felt gross to have these on me because I didn't feel at that point that they were divinely inspired from God. I felt that they were just a ripoff from another religion. Guys, this is so hard for me to talk about. I know I'm just like talking about it, but I actually don't think I've ever told anybody about it in this detail. And now I'm just telling the whole world about it. So that's a little bit scary. Actually, it's a lot of it scary. And I'm just sitting here thinking, can I release this podcast? Can I actually release this podcast? I know it's one thing to film it, but can I actually release it? After I release it, will I just take it down? I don't know. But no matter what, I want to be authentic to my story. No matter what, this is my story. Can you hear me giving myself affirmations? This is stuff that I teach. Deep breaths, just coming back to center, and just like releasing all of those fears that are coming up. Because we don't want to act out of fear, but fear is going to come. So I'm just going to just going to let them go. And I'm going to give myself some affirmations. I'm here to tell this story to be authentic to myself. And I'm creating this podcast as a family history for me, for processing for me. And I'm allowed to change my mind at any point in time. And that's okay. Oh, okay. So I rip my garments off and everything just dissolves from there. It is so crazy to go from I'm 100% in and believe everything to now I don't know anything. I have no idea what to believe. And I don't think we have to necessarily go in detail onto like the next few months of, the chaos that was happening in my brain, but it did lead to a lot of depression. And I think that sometimes when we take a step away from the church, we are taught to follow, that like good, happy feeling. Do you have a good, happy feeling inside when you do this? Do you have a good, happy feeling inside when you do that? If you have the absence of that happy feeling, it means that you're off on the wrong path, that you shouldn't go there. Well, guys, I call BS on that. Because yes, while we have our intuition, we have guidance from spirit, God, divinity, and a lot of times that can feel like good, happy feelings rising in the chest, burning in the bosom, as it's talked about within the LDS church. But also there's that whole other concept where you got a whole bunch of beliefs and you got a whole bunch of crap that you've been holding on to for a really long time. And then suddenly that dam breaks loose and you got to deal with all of that. And it's like drinking from a fire hose, right? So of course that is not going to feel good. Even if you have an internal peace from God accompanying you with that peace doesn't necessarily overwhelm the amount of pain that you're going through as you're facing all of these past experiences, all of this trauma, all of this questioning, and it's an ugly feeling. Also, how many of you guys have done something that was supposedly exactly what you were supposed to do and felt nothing? Or done something that you were supposed to do and didn't feel good about it? So I don't necessarily feel like this is a compass on where you should be going. It is information that you are gathering. And it can be information that you are gathering. It could be an indication of things that you need to work through. And I will tell you that I needed to work through some stuff. So it got to the point where I was getting more and more and more depressed. And, I talked to a friend who isn't a member of the church, never has been, just a really good friend. And I just mentioned something like, maybe I should go see a therapist. And she, within the next day, she gave me the information of a therapist that was nearby, and gave me all of the contact information, had scouted them out. And she's like, she doesn't live in the state, you guys. So she went and she did the research on a therapist and gave me the information. And she just invited me like, hey, maybe you should reach out. Maybe you should go to therapy. Well, this specific therapy group, collection of counselors, of therapists, are really awesome because they deal a lot with faith transitions, is what they call it. And so they're helping coach people through this exact thing. They also love helping LGBTQ patients, or I guess the LGBTQ community. And so they have this beautiful insight into helping people just work through this. So I kind of intuitively picked somebody off of the list and made an appointment with her. And I went in there and I just sobbed for my whole 45 minutes straight. And then I went in there the next week and I just sobbed for the whole 45 minutes straight. And she understood. And she came at it from like a totally unbiased perspective, but she understood and she helped me to realize that what I was experiencing, this deep despair, this deep depression, was maybe not accompanied by you're off on the wrong path, but that I no longer had a value system. And I don't know if you know this, but like a value system is really important. It's not just a religious thing. It is a system. It's this, kind of these healthy boundaries that we set for ourselves, we set for our children, we set for our school kids. If we're teachers, we have a value system in the classroom, right? Almost every single organization of any kind, whether it's family or outside of the family or in the church or outside of the church, you have a value system. And value systems are incredibly important for our mental health. So we took time to write down all of these things that brought discontent for me. I mean, she had like this huge whiteboard. We just wrote a whole bunch of things down. She told me to go home and write all of this stuff down to just kind of purge everything. And then when I would arrive for my appointment, we would pick one of those things and we would say, is this a value that you want to keep? Is this something that is honoring to you? And she wasn't like, nope, you should throw that one out. That one's horrible, right? She was just asking and letting me ask the question, is this something that I value? But I think that this is something that you can do right now without even going to therapy. Just take a piece of paper, get yourself a whiteboard, just purge all of these beliefs, these values, these teachings, and write them down. And then one by one, as you have time, as you have energy or capacity, you pick one of those up and you can very intuitively do this. If you want, practice using your intuition, which we have podcast episodes about if you need to go back and listen to those. Practice using your intuition to pull one out, pick it out, and start saying, is this something that I want to keep with me? But here's the key, you guys. The thing that has helped me the most is to look at everything quite objectively. To take a step back from everything and look at it as an experiment. Look at it as something that you are just gathering information about. There's a lot of trauma attached to all of these things. And it's very hard to sort out. And it's very hard to not just be emotionally attached to it. Now, I don't want to contradict myself. In other episodes, I talk about how sometimes we are led and guided. Our intuition can sometimes come up as emotions. But in this case, when things are so emotionally heightened, we're not coming from a neutral place and then we feel an emotion. We are coming from an emotionally heightened state. That it is a good idea, at least it was for me. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but for me, taking a step back and just objectively looking at stuff was the biggest thing I ever could have done. I was talking to a very new friend the other day, and she is going through a very similar experience. They're all different from each other. All of our stories are different from each other, but they kind of look the same. They have their same patterns. And she has so much fear about, oh, what if I do this? What if I do that? What if I don't do this? What if I don't do that? And I encouraged her to take a step back, gather the information, and then make a decision about it. Or don't make a decision about it. Just gather the information. We don't have to make a decision right now. And that's where the stress comes in, right? Have you felt that? If you're listening to this, you're probably, we're, I don't even know, like 60 minutes into this, an hour into this. And if you're still here, I'm going to guess you're going through stuff like this. And have you felt the pressure of making a decision right now, of having to know it all right now, having to accept the truth or not accept the truth, right? Be in the church or out of the church. What if it's okay that you don't make a decision at all? What if it's okay that you're gathering information? What if it's okay for you to just not have blind faith, but that you actually want to be taught? It's called experimentation. And even within the LDS church, we are taught to experiment. But do we actually experiment? Do we allow ourselves to take a step back, practice something, do something, experiment? That's what an experiment is, right? Is action. It's doing something and seeing what the outcome is. That is experimentation, and we are taught to experiment. So be a scientist. Do something and not worry about whether or not it's right or wrong. Gather the information about it, because you know what? God is going to love you no matter what you do. And that right there is one of the hardest things to wrap your mind around when you have grown up in the LDS church, because we are very much taught and told that you have to do something in order to be worthy of something. You have to do or not do something in order to be worthy of going to the temple, in order to be worthy of taking the sacrament, in order to be worthy of having the Holy Ghost with you, of having Christ with you, of having God with you. But is that true? And this, for me, you guys, is a big deal, and it's something that I have had to overcome, is where does our worth come from? When you are a baby, are you of worth? Did you do something to earn that worth? No. Absolutely not. But are you of worth? Yes. What about now? How come when you're 32 years old, there's all of these expectations on you that you have to do something in order to be of worth? And I remember this conversation. It's just coming up to my mind. A really good friend, Christian, never been a member of the LDS church. So grateful for all the people who have been put into my life where they just have like unbiased opinions and they just let me talk and they invite me to think about things, right? They don't tell me that what I'm doing is right or wrong. Anyway, so I'm having this conversation and we're talking about worth, and I just remember I remember her bringing this idea to my mind. What if you're of worth without doing anything, without doing any of that? What if God doesn't care where you go or what you do? Because he loves you, truly loves you no matter what. And that felt so weird. And I even told her, I was like, that's something that I can't even comprehend. Because for so long, I had been taught differently. Now, here's the thing. The words that come out of people's mouth is, God loves you no matter what. But then on the other side, the words that come out of people's mouth is, you have to do X, Y, Z in order to be worthy of God's love, in order to be worthy of his presence, in order to be, have eternal salvation. And that's weird. It's weird to think about. It's weird to reconcile with the idea that you are worthy right here, right now. So that's where I am right now. And that's basically how I have been practicing things recently. I don't think, this is my personal opinion, you guys, and I'm not going to go into deep doctrine or what's right or wrong, or I don't even know. I don't want to sit here and I don't want to preach to you about like super specifics of the gospel, about Joseph Smith, about, I don't know. I don't want to get into that. What I want to tell you is where I'm at right now and how I am completely okay with it. I'm not in the church. I'm not out of the church. I don't know exactly what I believe. I don't know if the things that I was taught my entire life are 110% true. I don't know if they're wrong. I am standing back and I am gathering information. But like I said, this is hard. This is so hard. And honestly, the church is not built for this. No matter what we will preach, we are not built for people to question and be in a spot where I don't know what the heck's going on, man. But I'm here. I'm here for the social. I just want to hang out. I just want to have practices to be closer to God. There's really no room for that, whether we say there is or isn't. That is my experience. But recently I have been getting braver and braver and more brave and more brave and more brave, to the point where I don't care what you think I should or should not be doing. I don't care if I am in or out. I don't care if you don't believe in the same God that I believe in. All right, let's go back to therapy. Therapy was awesome. I was able to eventually come to a place where I felt peace, where I, at least sorted through enough things in my mind that I was okay to a degree of being who I was and what I believed, and not going to church or going to church. It didn't matter. It was just this self-discovery and making my own value system. And it was amazing. But there is so much shame attached to that, you guys. Like, the idea, I think, would make people cringe. You're just going to go out and you're going to make your own value system? wow, you are not supposed to do that. You're just going to let go of the iron rod and you're going to walk through that field? Wow, you should not be doing that. What if I'm still walking to the tree, y'all? What if that is still my destination? Divinity, God, my divinity. But I'm just taken a different way. And that's okay. The ultimate goal is to be one with divinity. Whether you believe that that is a heavenly mother and a heavenly father, or you believe in that being multiple gods, or you believe in that being the universe, or you believe that that divinity is within you, as in is you, it doesn't matter. The ultimate goal is to reconnect with divinity. Why does it matter how you get there? Why does it matter what rituals you do? What practices you practice to get to God? I don't think it matters. And I know that is an unpopular opinion. But God loves you and loves everybody. And I don't think he cares how you worship him, how you grow closer to him, how you better yourself, how you raise your vibration. He just wants you to do it, and he'll take any part of you. He, she, I just want to generalize this term, right? Within the LDS church, we typically think of God as Heavenly Father and supposedly Heavenly Mother, where she's talked about, but not really talked about. But supposedly they are God together. But whatever it is, I want you to know that I have felt an abundance of love, more expansive than I have ever felt before. And through this whole journey, I have witnessed God's expansiveness, and it is so much bigger than any of us could ever imagine. I want you. Sorry, I should probably gather myself before I keep going, so you don't have to listen to my crying voice. My wish for you is to not be scared. My wish for you is to go out and gather information. My wish for you is to dissolve all boundaries and barriers that you have with other people, whether inside the church or outside of the church. And lastly, my wish for you is to know God, whoever they may be, however they show up for you in your life. I just hope that you continue to look for that divinity, that you continue to ask questions, that you continue to align with your higher self and know how to communicate with God. And that's the only thing that's important, is how you get to communicate with God. There are a few other things that I just want to talk about before we end this episode. And one of those things is that I mentioned before that I felt like I was raised to love everyone, and that is taught within the LDS church. And on the other side of things, I realized, no, I didn't. I would preach to the end of the world that I loved everybody. But no matter what, when I was in the church, sure, I loved everybody. I had mutual respect for them, but there was always this internal desire that I wanted them to follow my pathway, and my pathway was the only true pathway, and I felt sad and sorry for them. And honestly, I felt elitist because I was the one that had the whole truth. I don't think I would have ever admitted that to myself. Is this true for everybody? Probably not. There are probably some amazing individuals out there who seriously do not have that in the back of their mind. Like they could really care less. But for me, it was that way. And I was shown how unloving I actually was and how unaccepting I actually was. And that was so eye-opening for me and has been invaluable to my growth and experience. I'm sure that was a personal lesson that I needed to learn, that God was like, you think you love people? No, let's try that again. And I could only see that on the other side. I don't know how I could have had that realization. I'm sure I could have. I'm guessing God is a powerful being and can help me to have all kinds of lessons in all variety of ways. But man, that lesson hit home and hit hard, and I am forever changed because of it. The next thing I want to address is that it was really easy for me to go the other way. And I can still hear it in this podcast, that this is something I still get to work on. And what I mean is it's really easy for me to then dislike the church. To be like, well, all these other people are better who are practicing however they want and they're loving everybody and they're not within the church than the people who are in the church, who are judgy and who are wrong and who are elitist and whatever. It's so easy for me to swing the other direction and suddenly hate the people within the church and to suddenly look for all the reasons for me to hate them. But if I really come back to what I think God has wanted me to learn through all of this, which is love, His expansive love, and my lack of love for other people, I can't go back the other way. I have to learn to also love my past, to love the incredibly well-meaning people who surround me, to love the people who are loving God in their own way, who are coming closer to God in that way. Is not right for me to then turn around and judge them. And I don't know, I don't think there's a them or an us or a in or an out, right? I don't really affiliate myself with the church. I don't really affiliate myself outside of the church. I just am a person. Is that okay? Can I just be a person? But I get to learn to love everybody. And that's something that I'm still working on and happy to admit that I still need a lot of practice in that area. So basically, that's where I'm at. Yeah, that's where I'm at. And it feels super good to share it. I actually tried to share it a couple times. I think I've recorded this podcast in some way, at least 2 times. And I don't think I was ready, but I've been ready this time. I'm kind of at the point where I'm just like, I don't care. Just think what you want. I'm just going to share my story. I would love to share with you some of my perspectives of how God has shown up for me, how I think He can show up, how He operates, that I have been a little nervous to share because I don't think it necessarily aligns with the teachings of the church exactly. I actually think it really does. It's just maybe a different language and maybe taught in a different way, or maybe we're missing the mark. I mean, guys, I have so many thoughts. Like Andrew and I were talking yesterday because Juniper has chosen to be baptized as a member of the church, a member of the LDS church. I hold a calling within the LDS church. I'm in the young women's. I go to the activities. I show up in sleeveless shirts, like tank top shirts, not like tube tops. I have shown up to church with a sleeveless dress. Once again, like a tank top dress, not... Anyway, it wouldn't matter. I could show up however I wanted, right? But like, that's okay. That's what I want you to know is you can still have a bajillion questions. You can still be like, well, I mean, that's a good point and that's a good point. And, these are actually really similar ideas. And I was fighting against this, but now I believe this, but actually they're the same thing. And it's totally okay if you walk down this pathway and you're like, actually, I want to go back. That was really good. There are some really good things about that. It's okay. I feel okay about it. I hope you feel okay about it. Actually, I don't care, whatever. You feel however you want to feel. I'm practicing, okay? I'm still practicing being okay, but I have made progress on that. I'm going to encourage you to share this with somebody if you found it helpful at all, because there is so much beauty in community. And as you take a step back from one community, it is really hard to find your new community. It's really hard to feel like you have a place. It's very easy to feel lonely. So if this has been helpful at all to you and you know somebody who needs community and you know somebody who needs to know that God loves them no matter where they are at and that they get to just gather some information and decide what they want to keep and what they don't want to. Sorry, I'm just laughing because I know I can hear these like echoes of teachings in the back of my brain that are like, you are sinning by saying that this is how you're going to get deceived. I'm just going to set those aside and tell you what I have learned from my experience. Please share this with somebody who might need it. Re-listen to it if you need. Go back to the first podcast episode to kind of see that awakening journey. Allow yourself grace. Allow yourself to just do whatever the heck you want. Have I said this enough? Hopefully it's all in there. I've told you guys this before, but I do one-on-one coaching. And this is exactly what I'm talking about, that we can go through and look at those beliefs and see what beliefs are holding us back to living a true, authentic, beautiful, high vibration life, a life connected to your higher self and a life connected to God. Essentially what I do is I just help coach you through your own self-discovery. And we can do this just with one-on-one coaching, just a typical coaching session, or I like to say mentoring session, because sometimes coaching is like, So mentoring, I'm your mentor, you guys. I also offer human design coaching sessions. Mentoring sessions. I offer human design mentoring sessions, and human design is a system, an ancient system. It's actually 4 different ancient systems that help you to see like your energetic self. And what we can really see through your chart is where's the greatest potential for your conditioning. So being conditioned through religious practices, being conditioned through your parental practices or your household, being conditioned from your spouse or just your environment that you've grown up in. You have areas in your energy body, your energy self, that is more susceptible to conditioning than other aspects of yourself. I love to look at the chart to see where this conditioning is, because a lot of times we don't know what our conditioning is, just like we don't know what our superpower is, because we have always lived with it. It is part of our energy, it's part of our being, and it's not until somebody brings it to our awareness that we are even able to see it to then help it or to heal it or to empower it if it's a strength. Everything on the human design chart, essentially, it's not good or bad. It has a high vibration or it has a lower vibration. So it might have a lower vibrational expression or a higher vibrational expression. And so we can take these strengths that are currently operating at a lower vibrational expression and help you to bring them into the strength, right? Into a higher vibrational expression. And so that's what human design does for us. It helps us to get really specific, really fast. We're not doing any guesswork on, well, it could maybe do this. It's quite specific. And so that is why I love human design sessions and why I think if you are listening to this podcast and you are ready to decondition and to dig through that stuff and make your own value system, I'd be happy to help you do it. I think it would be perfect for you. So, love you guys all, and I can't wait to continue this conversation to talk to you about, my new perspectives of God. I want to give you guys a little bit of an update. Since writing this podcast episode, I've been able to essentially reflect on what I spoke about. It's actually really beneficial for me to listen to myself talk about these experiences that I have because I can process through them and I can see where those limiting beliefs are that are preventing me from moving forward powerfully, right? So as I listened to myself, I recognized that I was not giving enough recognition to those who have stood by my side, to those who are loving and kind. And those are people in the church and out of the church or fence sitters like myself. In this episode, I talk generally about the organization of the church, but there are so many beautiful individuals who have shown me a lot of love. I hope that those who are listening who have supported me along the way, or those who are listening that are saying, hey, not everybody is like that. I hear you and I feel you, and I want to acknowledge those beautiful souls who are loving unconditionally. Thank you to everybody who has continued to support me through this process, whether or not you agree with me. Your understanding and your listening ear have been a huge blessing to me. So I wanted to acknowledge that and update you guys. And going true to what I said, I get to gather more information, have new experiences, and I'm allowed to change and process this in real time, right? So that's it. Hope you guys are brave enough to be able to do your own processing. And I also hope that you guys can find a wonderful community that supports you no matter what. Thanks for joining me today. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs a little inspiration. Your support makes a world of difference. Until next time, keep rewriting and reigniting your story. Before we finish this podcast episode up, I want to share one more thing with you. I have a therapist and I go and see a therapist on a very regular basis. I think it is important for you, for me, and for everybody on planet Earth to seek out a qualified professional to help them. Please remember that the advice I share on this podcast is just for general purposes only. I seek out to be accurate, but I certainly cannot guarantee it, nor do I accept the responsibility for any actions taken after listening to this podcast. By listening, you agree not to hold Soul Script Studio, nor myself, Laura Titanser, liable for any outcomes. Thank you so much for understanding, and go and find yourself a therapist.